Hey everyone, and welcome to The Year Was, the podcast all about today that gives you just enough information to effectively be that guy at the party, causing all your friends to question, hey, who invited you? Like, seriously, why are you here? I'm your host, Michael Montalvo, and for the next few minutes, we will swim through the river of time to find out what makes today truly unique. In this episode, we examine the events that occurred May 5th. Comedy has come a long way since the early days of dropping a rock on someone's foot or pointing into the distance shouting, "Oh my God, what is that thing up there? Right behind you, up in the sky, you better look, it'll probably never happen again." Or, farts. Or guys getting hit in the junk. Look, comedy comes in all forms, alright? I first learned about the Stooges from a pizza chain called Mr. Gatti's, which has since rebranded to just Gatti's, or Gattiland. Gatti's, for those of you who don't know, offers viewing rooms tailored towards different demographics. They have a parent room with news, a sports room with, you guessed it, nature documentaries. They have a kids room with cartoons and a fun room, which at the time I went was paired with the kids room and showed the old black and white shorts of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, and of course, the Three Stooges. But even then, I didn't recognize them for who they were or for their contributions to comedy. Fast forward an indeterminate amount of time to when I was in the 5th grade, AMC began airing the shorts as part of a classic lineup, and the school, for whatever reason, was rampant with talk about Moe, Larry, and Curly. I remember discussions in the cafeteria about who was the best comedy team and why one was better than the other. The general consensus was that the Stooges were in fact great, and that, try as I might to argue my case against, I was wrong. That's correct. I was not a fan. Was not being the key words there. But as I continued to learn about comedy and comedy legends, as I developed my own unique, put here in air quotes, sense of humor, I began to see that much of what I loved about comedy came from and was influenced by the work of Moe, Larry, Curly, Joe, Shemp, and Curly Joe. From their early work on vaudeville to the lot of Columbia Pictures in a career that lasted almost 50 years, they have maintained themselves as giants and still gain fans to this day. But where did it all start? The year was 1934, and on this day, May 5th, the first Three Stooges short, Woman Haters, was released. Now, there's a bit of clarification needed here. While it is true that the Stooges appeared on film before as part of Ted Healy's act, Ted Healy and His Stooges, it's Woman Haters that is generally considered as the first short. Under Healy, the Stooges, then Shemp and Moe Howard, wowed audiences and received rave reviews. But after a visit to Chicago, they added Larry Fine to the act. And this would be the lineup until Shemp quit over Healy's abuse and desire to go solo. With the trio now down to 2, they added Jerome, aka Curly, and the classic lineup was born. The trio continued to work under Healy, making a series of appearances in shorts and features, but it was in 1934 that the group split and began to look for a way to make their own mark. According to Neatorama, after the split, Larry and Curly were worried about their future in show business, to which Moe replied, "Look, let's call ourselves the Three Stooges and go out on our own." They quickly secured a contract with Columbia Pictures and began work on their first short under the new moniker. The film would be Woman Haters, and here's a brief synopsis. The trio join a women's haters club and swear off women for life. Larry immediately breaks this vow and falls for a woman named Mary, only to be forced to break it off with her by Moe and Curly. The girl's father, however, makes Larry marry Mary after he tries and fails to end the relationship. On a train ride, Mary uses her charm in order to woo Curly and Moe to make Larry jealous. She eventually tells them the truth about what is going on and accidentally pushes Moe and Curly out of the window of the train, and then the film closes many years later as the Stooges reunite at the Women's Haters Club, once again bowing off women and sharing their hatred of old age. It was something of an unusual picture. It was also made very quickly. The Three Stooges were officially part of Columbia March 19, 1934, and by March 21st, they were shooting their film. The film was written in a rhyming pattern with an almost sing-song performance as part of the studio's musical novelty series. In it, they don't play Moe, Larry, and Curly, but instead Tom, Jim, and Jack, with Larry Jim taking the lead role that would eventually shift and stay with Moe. It would also be the first time Curly would incorporate his catchphrases of nyuk 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 and whoop 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 whoop. And while it wasn't the Three Stooges that audiences would eventually come to love the world over, it showed and laid the groundwork for what they would eventually become. For their work on the picture, they would only be paid $1,000 to be split evenly between the three. However, by their fourth film, it was bumped up to $7,500, although they still had to split it. At the end of the day, when it was all said and done, the Stooges were said to not be fans of this first short. But that's often the case of artists and their work. The early stuff is so different that after they've had time to grow and develop the act or their art, after they've had time to become what they would become, often time affords you the opportunity to look back and cringe at your early work. The short, however, resulted in great success for Columbia and the Stooges, who would go on to make 190 pictures. That's going to do it for us today. If you like this podcast and want to hear more, give us a rate and a review. That helps me out and helps steer this in a direction that is hopefully good for all. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can find the Year Was audio version on your podcast app of choice. You can find me on social media and at YouTube at the Apple Cider Club. And as always, I want to thank the Tim Kreitz Band for our musical theme. And thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.